Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag is without a doubt one of the best entries in the series. And now, 13 years later, we are returning to the Caribbean with Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced. This is a full remake of the original game built from the ground up on the latest version of the Anvil engine. On the technical side, this game brings over all the major engine advancements we've seen in AC Shadows. This includes Raytracing Global Illumination, which is immediately noticeable in the rich, colored bounce lighting between surfaces. The game also features ray-traced specular reflections, allowing reflective materials such as water surfaces and polished floors to accurately reflect their surroundings. And the last major feature is the Micropolygon Geometry. This one is pretty similar to Unreal Engine 5's Nanite. Instead of switching between fixed, low, and high LOD models, the Micropolygon pipeline provides continuous levels of details in real time based on distance, visibility, and camera perspective, which helps maintain consistent geometry quality without noticeable LOD pop-in. Combining all these features with the high quality and physically based water system, strand-based hair and advanced character rendering, and numerous other visual improvements make Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced one of the best-looking open-world games of this generation. On the performance side, the game is equally impressive. The performance is remarkably stable with consistent frame times and almost no noticeable spikes, even in dense and crowded areas such as Havana. But the game isn't perfect, and there are a few minor issues and annoyances worth mentioning. The first is related to upscaling. When selecting the balanced or performance modes, the game reduces the resolution scale below 100%. This leads to an incorrect internal and output resolution, as you can see here with the balanced mode. To fix this, you need to manually set the resolution scale back to 100, then adjust the maximum dynamic resolution to 34% for balanced or 25% for performance. This will, of course, result in a lower performance compared to the wrong default configuration, but the improvement in image quality is well worth it. The second issue is that the game defaults to the outdated DLSS 3 CNN model preset E, which can look quite blurry, especially when using the lower rendering modes. So I highly recommend forcing at least DLSS for preset K through the NVIDIA app or another tool. Even on older 20 or 30 series GPUs, preset K delivers noticeably better motion clarity at almost the same performance as before when using a lower rendering mode such as balanced instead of quality. Now let's move on to the individual graphic settings, starting with ray tracing. The game offers two ray tracing modes: Standard, which enables ray trace global illumination, and Extended, which adds ray trace specular reflections on top of that. And there is also an option to disable ray tracing entirely. Compared to Assassin's Creed Shadows, the pre-computed lighting in this game is significantly better. That said, RTGI still delivers a noticeably better results and does a much better job of grounding objects within the scene. Ray traced reflections also improve the visuals by reducing the visibility of SSR artifacts, and they play a bigger role in this game compared to AC Shadows, because here you'll be spending a lot of time looking at reflective water surfaces. As for the performance cost, it depends on both the scene and the rendering resolution. Here in Havana at 1440p with DLSS quality, ultra-high ray tracing and BVH quality, switching from off to standard results in roughly a 15% performance hit, while enabling extended increases the cost to around 23%. In a less demanding scene, the cost drops to roughly 9% from off to standard and around 18% when switching to extended. Fortunately, we have the Raytracing Quality setting, which should help us reduce this performance cost. Visually, it controls the overall quality, resolution, and accuracy of the RT effects. When it comes to noise, only low shows slightly more noise than RT reflections. RTGI, on the other hand, can look slightly noisier at the higher quality levels. As for the overall image quality, the biggest improvement comes when moving from low to medium. Increasing this setting beyond that results in relatively minor visual gains. Performance-wise, with extended ray tracing enabled, increasing ray tracing quality from low to medium costs around 3%, while the higher options push the costs up to around 6%. In Havana, the impact is slightly higher, with around a 6% performance drop when moving from low to medium, and approximately 11% when using the higher options. The last RT setting is BVH quality. This one controls the quality of the geometry used for ray tracing. It determines which objects and surfaces are included in the RT calculations and the distance at which they receive the full RT effects. As you can see here, increasing the BVH quality allows RTGI to affect more distant objects and surfaces. The same applies to RT reflections, where SSR artifacts are no longer visible on distant water surfaces when using the higher options. Performance-wise, at least in Havana, BVH quality has a negligible impact. So when it comes to ray tracing in this game, I recommend sticking with the standard mode, especially if you're struggling with performance. Extended ray tracing is better suited for those who have performance to spare and are particularly bothered by SSR artifacts or reflective surfaces. As for ray tracing quality, I think medium offers the best balance, and I don't see a compelling visual reason to go any higher. Finally, for BVH quality, I recommend using at least high. Let's move on to the character section, starting with character quality. This one adjusts the mesh quality, level of detail, and shading quality on NPCs. Visually, it's difficult to showcase the differences because changing this setting requires reloading a save, and each reload randomizes most NPCs. Still, as you can see here, the visual difference between the options is really subtle. Only Ultra Low shows noticeably lower mesh quality on distant NPCs. When it comes to LOD pop-in on characters, even the higher options still exhibit some, but it's less pronounced compared to the lower options. Performance-wise, at least in this scene, the impact is relatively small, around 2% from ultra low to high, and around 5% when going to ultra high. So for this one, considering the minimal visual improvements, I recommend saving the small extra performance and sticking with high. Next, we have hair strands. This one is divided into two sections. The first one affects Edward and offer two quality levels, with player only providing denser strand-based hair at a performance cost of around 7% compared to the standard card-based hair. The second section controls the strand-based hair for NPCs, primarily adjusting the distance at which it is rendered. As you can see, the pop-in is much more noticeable on low compared to medium. One thing worth mentioning is that even if hair strands is set to player only, other characters still receive it during cutscenes, as you can see here. Also, setting all characters to very low reduces the quality of Edward's strand-based hair as well. Performance-wise, moving from player-only to all characters results in around a 3% cost at very low, 6% at low, 11% at medium, and 16% at high. So if you really need the extra performance, turning off hair strands entirely is not a bad idea. But generally, I think the visual improvement is well worth the performance cost, and I recommend keeping it at player-only. Let's move on to effects section, starting with post effects. This one controls the quality of some post-processing effects like lens flare, as you can see here. Performance-wise, it has only a small 2 to 3% cost when going from very low to high. So if you like these effects, I recommend keeping it at high. Moving on to particles quality. Generally, I found that this setting does not have a significant visual impact. For example, the differences in smoke and fire effects between the options are really subtle. In this scene, the main visual change is the increased rain density, which improves starting from high. And on the performance side, the impact is also relatively small, as you can see here. So even with the small performance gap, I still don't trust this setting, and I don't recommend pushing it all the way to ultra high. Instead, keep it at high. And the last setting in this section is water quality. This one controls the quality of water simulation effects. Starting from low, the water looks much better compared to ultra low. And going higher, especially to high and very high, improves the quality further with better waves and foam effects. Performance-wise in this scene, there is around a 4% cost from ultra low to medium, 10% to high, and 13% to very high. So for this one, I recommend low or medium. Next, we have texture resolution quality. As you can see here, textures start to look acceptable at medium and high, while very high and ultra high further improve texture resolution and surface detail. And these higher options come with a substantial increase in VRAM usage. Speaking of VRAM, on the 8GB 3060 Ti at 1440p using DLSS custom balanced, I found that high is the best option regardless of whether ray tracing is enabled or not. And at least in this scene, very high does not cause a lot of stuttering, but it pushes VRAM usage very close to the 8GB limit. Therefore, if you have an 8GB GPU, I recommend keeping texture resolution quality at high. Let's move on to the geometry section, starting with loading distance. This one controls the level of detail of non-micropolygon geometry and affects assets such as foliage, including trees, along with various small environmental objects, as you can see here. Performance-wise, there is around a 4% cost when going from ultra-low to medium, 9% to very high, and around 12% to ultra-high. So for this one, I recommend medium. But if you find the pop-in noticeable and you have a capable CPU and GPU, push it to high or very high. Next, we have geometry quality. This one primarily affects the mesh quality and density of decorative grass and other small vegetation, as you can see here with the distant grass and the shrubs on the rooftop. Performance-wise, there is around a 5% cost from ultra-low to high and 9% when going up to ultra-high. So for this one, I recommend high. And the last setting in this section is Micropolygon. This one adjusts the amount of VRAM allocated to Micropolygon geometry rendering. At lower quality levels, some distant Micropolygon geometry can appear incomplete, as you can see here with low and medium. Performance-wise, this setting has a negligible impact. However, its effect on VRAM usage is much more significant, especially at very high. Therefore, I recommend sticking with high, particularly if you're VRAM limited. Let's move on to the lighting section, starting with screen space effects. This one controls the quality of screen space ambient occlusion and screen space reflections. For SSAO, the biggest visual improvement comes when increasing the setting from ultra-low to low, while going all the way up to high, as you can see here, does not add much visually. As for SSR, ultra-low disables it completely, while very low enables it, and going higher does not seem to noticeably improve its quality. Performance-wise, in this scene, there is around a 5% cost when going from ultra-low to low and about 7% when going up to high. So for this one, I recommend low or high. Next, we have light source quality. This setting primarily allows some local lights to cast dynamic shadows when set to high or above. And as you can see here, it comes with a massive performance cost. Going from low to high costs around 25%, while going further to ultra high increases the cost to around 30%. Visually, the additional dynamic shadows are a nice improvement, but they definitely are not worth such a large performance cost, so I recommend keeping light source quality at medium. Moving on to shadow quality. As usual, this one controls the quality and resolution of the game's shadow maps as well as the overall shadow draw distance. It also appears that very high and ultra high enable a form of soft shadows, making shadows become progressively softer the farther they are from the casting object. On the performance side, there is one issue worth mentioning. Using very high or ultra high can lead to a significant performance drop during ship-to-ship collisions, particularly when ramming enemy ships. We can see that here. Notice how performance holds up much better with high compared to very high or ultra high. As for its overall performance impact, shadow quality is one of the most demanding settings in this game. In this scene, there is around a 4% cost from ultra low to very low, 10% to medium, 14% to high, 19% to very high, and around 26% when going up to ultra high. So for shadow quality, I recommend medium or high. Let's move on to the volumetric effects section, starting with cloud quality. As the name suggests, this controls the quality of the game's volumetric clouds. And even at low, the clouds look quite good, with no noticeable breakup or noise. On the performance side, there is around a 3% cost from low to medium and 6% when going to the higher options. So for this one, I recommend low or medium. The second and last setting in this section is fog quality. For this one, it was really difficult to spot any visual differences between the options. The only scene where I noticed a difference was here, where the lower options show slightly more breakup in the distant fog, and I'm not sure if you'll be able to spot it clearly in this compressed video. As for the performance impact, it's just as subtle with a small 2% cost when going from very low to very high. So for fog quality, I recommend at least high. Let's move on to the terrain section, starting with terrain quality. This one adjusts the level of bumpiness of the terrain and the quality of the tessellations used on terrain surfaces, as you can see here. Performance-wise, there is around a 4% cost when going from ultra-low to ultra-high. And this setting also has a noticeable impact on VRAM usage, so I recommend keeping it at medium or use high if you are not VRAM limited. Next, we have scatter density. This controls the density of both close and distant small scattered environmental objects, such as small grass, moss, and so on. Performance-wise, this setting has a negligible impact, so I recommend leaving it at ultra high. Moving on to deformation. This one controls the quality of terrain deformation when interaction with deformable surfaces such as wet sand or mud. Performance-wise similar to scatter density, this doesn't seem to have a noticeable impact, so I recommend leaving it at high. Lastly, we have terrain texture quality. This one adjusts the resolution of terrain textures. Visually, the difference is only noticeable at extremely close viewing distances. From a normal gameplay perspective, it's really difficult to tell the difference. And this setting mainly affects VRAM usage, which is noticeably higher when using high. So I recommend using medium, especially if you're VRAM limited. So given everything we've discussed so far, these are my recommended settings for Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced. Now let's compare the performance of the optimized settings against the max settings at 1440p using DLSS for Presage K and high texture quality. And I am using the custom balance or the real balanced mode on both max and optimized settings without ray tracing. For the optimized RT side, I am using dynamic resolution scaling, which works extremely well in this game and should help us maintain 60 FPS most of the time. I've also included the internal resolution readout from the DLSS HUD, so we can see how low the rendering resolution drops. When it comes to the performance gains, the optimized settings delivers an average improvement of around 63% over the max settings, while the optimized RT settings provides an average performance increase of around 52%. Now, some of this gain might be influenced by VRAM limitations. So let's switch to the 4070 Super. This time I am using DLAA with Presage K and ultra high texture resolution quality. Here we can see a slightly smaller performance gain compared to the 3060 Ti with an average improvement of around 47%, which is still a substantial increase considering the relatively small visual differences. Before ending the video, I want to give a quick shout out to my Patreon. If you are able and would like to directly support my work, consider becoming a patron to get early access to my optimized settings, as well as downloads of the highest possible quality of my latest videos, including this one. And a big thank you to all my supporters, and thank you as well for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, and if not, leave a dislike. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next one.